Nuclear power experts are now saying Japan's plant problems were caused by the impact of the tsunami that followed the earthquake, not the quake itself.
And Lehr says panic over nuclear power is totally unnecessary. He is science director of the Heartland Institute and president of Environmental Education Enterprises. Well, it doesn't look like the Obama administration is panicking. They're sticking up for nuclear energy, saying it very much should be a part of the so-called clean energy portfolio. But you've got people looking at the pictures, frankly, coming out of Japan, and that's disconcerting because a lot of people don't know. They're seeing little children who are being sprayed down or tested for any kind of radiation exposure. But how should we be processing the pictures and the information about melting cores coming out of Japan?
Well, sadly, Liz, people don't understand that a nuclear power plant is not a potential nuclear bomb, that the way nuclear energy works is we get a radiation reaction, we heat water, we create steam, we turn a turbine. When the reaction gets out of hand and overheats, we turn the reactor off altogether, which we have done in these Fukushima reactions, but they retain a certain amount of radiation and a certain amount of heat that will last for a number of days, and if we lose cooling, there can be melting. And it does appear that in one of the containment buildings there's been a breach and some low-level radiation is getting out into the countryside. And it's gone from bad to worse, and I don't want to minimize it. All I'm minimizing is that the ultimate impact on human health in Japan, the ultimate potential death toll, is quite minimal if there is any at all. No matter how bad it is in Japan, it's 10 times, was 10 times worse in Chernobyl in 1986. They had a power plant without any containment building. It blew up entirely. It spewed tons of material into the air. They thought tens of thousands of people would die downwind. When the UN finally investigated everything years later, they found there was a death toll of 50, either in the explosion or from radiation at the plant. There was leukemia in the neighborhood, literally in the village, of about 1,000 people. 998 were cured, and there were no increased cancer rates downwind from the plant, as so many people predicted, nor were children deformed in any way. So when the report came out 20 years later in 2006, what was clearly the worst disaster wasn't nearly as bad in terms of human toll.
But Jay, as you know, we hear all kinds of statistics. I've heard, numbers out of Chernobyl that 4,000 died as a result, and everybody's throwing around numbers. But the fact is that right now the Germans are closing 7 plants, at least temporarily, that are similar plants because of their concerns that the same thing might happen conceivably under some kind of circumstances in Germany that happened in Japan. Is that overreaction?
I think it is overreaction. David, there are 444 commercially operating nuclear power plants in the world, and they've been operating for about 40 years, many of them. There's never been a fatality in a single plant. We actually lose about 200 people a year in coal-fired and gas-fired power plants. Nuclear is very safe, not for a 9-point Richter scale earthquake, which created the tsunami that really made the problem. I mean, it's just amazing that the Japanese engineers have been able to hold on the way they have. Things are going to get better in the days to come. There will be a release of low-level radiation, but the ultimate impact on the Japanese public is going to be a tiny fraction of the doom and gloom scenario that we hear every day.
We can only hope, Jay. Let's talk about the latest news, and that is that there is discussion about helicopters dropping water directly into the reactor to cool down those rods. Can you tell us if you think that'll work?
I'm not sure it'll work, but I certainly would try it. I mean, they still have some heat that's out of control. The rods are melting. In the end, they may end up dropping to the bottom of the container, melting. There's about a 5-inch layer of stainless steel there. When we melted down in 3 Mile Island, the total core dropped down, and it only melted 5/8 of an inch into the 5 inches of steel before it cooled down. That could occur in Fukushima. I know that it will end, but gee, I would do anything I could to cool it down. They didn't want to use seawater because it probably will make the plant inactive. They'll be unable to rebuild it. But I think dropping it from helicopters, my guess is it won't do much good, but absolutely I would use everything at my hand to improve the situation. But regardless, the worst case, even if it really blew up and there was a huge breach in the containment structure, there is not going to be wholesale either loss of life or increased cancer rates in the years to come of the population downwind from the plants.
Let's hope you're right. Jay Lehr, Heartland Institute Science Director and Environmental Education Enterprises President. Thanks a lot, Jay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And Japan.